Thanks so much for being here today. Isn't it such a beautiful day out there? The sun is shining and we've had some snow this week. Very grateful that everyone's traveled safely, especially those who have come from some distance. Thank you for making time on a Saturday morning toward the end of our state legislative session so that we can get together and talk about the bills that are still being discussed and those that have been passed, and get some updates from our legislators and talk about other issues that are on our minds. That's essentially what our plan is for today. I'm Jared Rigby. I have the opportunity to serve as the Wasatch County Republican Party chairman. And so on behalf of the Republican Party, we want to welcome each one of you here today. And it's awesome to get together. It's a great day to be Americans, and we're grateful for your patriotism. As we get started, we want to thank UVU for letting us use their facility. This is the first time that we, as an organization, have been here. And how do you like it? Is that right? We've always loved being at Soldier Hollow, and they've kind of had some things that have come up that have kept us from being there. But I love the light there, and I love the light here, and so grateful for them. Lori Kohler is their representative here today, and so thanks to Lori for making all of this happen for us today. I'd like to welcome our guests. We have a number of them. We'll be hearing from most of them. Kim Coleman is our national committee woman, and also Melanie Montser is the vice chair of the state Republican Party. We're also grateful to have our representative, Mike Kohler, here, and three of our senators that represent our area, Ron Winterton, Kevin Stratton, and David Hinkins. Thank you to each of them for being here. We will have Mike Kennedy here at some point, and we do have a number of our local leaders. And so to all of our local leaders, we have our Heber City Mayor, we have our Wasatch County Council people. I'm not wanting to forget anyone, and who am I forgetting? Raise your hand so that I can recognize you. Thank you. If there are any other council people here, or other service people, we're grateful for your service. We're going to start this morning with a prayer by Johnny Wetzel, and then we're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Pauline Coomer.
Especially grateful to be citizens of Wasatch County. Father, we're praying this time for and thankful for the freedoms that we enjoy. We pray for those who serve in our behalf to protect those freedoms. We pray for those that are suffering throughout the world at this time also. We're thankful for those who are here today to serve us and make their presentations, and we pray that they'll be able to present those things that they've planned. And again, Father, we're grateful for all of the blessings. In the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please repeat the pledge with me. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're off. Here we go. So I'm grateful for our county executive committee. So raise your hands as I call on you. There's Cindy Cosert that's in the back, Brantley Eason in the back also. We're grateful to have our Owens, Carolyn, sorry, Carolyn Owens, the mighty, and also Eric Rowland and LaDawn Stoddard. We're grateful for them and everything they've done to organize today. Let's give you a few announcements of what's going to be happening in the next few months, and we'll make these quick so that we can hear from our guests. If you have your phones out and you want to pull up your calendars, our next Central Committee meeting is March 18th at 7 p.m. So that is March 18th, a Tuesday, and we're going to meet at the Heber City Police Department in their community room. And again, that's the next Central Committee meeting. Everyone's welcome, but it's usually for the chairs and the vice chairs of the precincts. The next one that we have is our county organizing convention. So this year, we're holding on April 22nd, that's the date, April 22nd, our organizing convention. It'll be at 7 p.m. at the Rocky Mountain Middle School. The next one is that there's a state organizing convention on May 17th, and that is at 9 a.m. It's on a Saturday at UVU in Orem. So again, that's the state organizing convention, May 17th, 9 a.m. at UVU in Orem. The last one that we wanted to mention for you is that we would like to help and encourage as many people as possible to be part of the Memorial Day events that happen here in the Valley. And we're going to be helping with those hopefully on May 26th. So as a party, we're hoping to volunteer and to have some festivities together on Memorial Day. It's May 26th. Okay, any questions about any of those dates or any of those announcements? The next thing that we're going to get into is Melanie Montessori here? Melanie. Oh, Melanie. Oh, great, Melanie. I'm glad that you're here. Melanie's going to take a few minutes. She's the vice chair for the state Republican Party, and she's also just been serving as the chairwoman of the Summit County Republican Party. And so we're grateful to have Melanie here. And is Kim Coleman here yet? I don't see her. Okay, so we'll just hear from Melanie for a few minutes, and then I'll come back up and introduce the others.
Okay, thank you, Jared. And how's it going, Wasatch County? I'm Melanie Montessori. I'm the outgoing chair from your neighboring county over in Summit, and I'm the new vice chair. Kim Coleman is now our national committee woman to the RNC, so she has stepped down as vice chair, and so I was elected at the recent SEC meeting, and really appreciate being here with you all and your nice Lincoln Day breakfast. And I just want to, I'm going to be very brief, but I just want to say that, we're here at an historic time in American history. What a blessing it is with our new president and new administration, and with, all the daily things that are going on, uncovering, fraud, waste, and abuse, and just the unprecedented and historic things that we're seeing coming out of our new administration every day, and and how grateful I am for all of that. And I just wanted to say that it's because of, people standing up for conservative values, standing up for Republican values. That's what brought us to this place. And, I appreciate all of you here. It is our faith, family, and freedom, and our standing strong. And we had some dark years in there. And it's because of you that, that we had victory. And that's what's going to take us into the future. Our country was built on the values, of conservatism, and that's what got us here. And that's what we need to fight for and protect for future generations of Utahns. So thank you all. Thank you for standing up and for fighting for our values.
Wonderful, thank you, Melanie. Okay, and Kim hasn't arrived yet, has she? What we're going to do next is we're going to ask our representatives and senators to bring their chairs up here, if they will. So Representative Kohler and Senators Winterton, Stratton, and Hinkins, if you don't mind coming up with your chairs.
It'll be open forum, but some people have opted to write down.
Awesome. We'll explain what we're going to do here next. Just takes a brief introduction. So a lot of you know that in the past when we've done our Lincoln Day breakfast, we've done it at Soldier Hollow, and we've done it with a lot of fanfare, and it's been our #1 fundraiser for the year, and it does fine, and at the same time, we always hope that it's going to do a little bit better. Well, last year we had an awesome experience on the train, and we would love to keep doing that. And so it's our plan right now to be doing our Lincoln Day event on the train, but every other year. And so in the off years, that we would do something like this, that incorporates our legislators and even our local legislators at some points, where we can hear what's going on locally, where we can have, on the train, they're all going from car to car. And it's quite the experience because you can just be, 15 or 20 people with one representative. And we love the venue. And here, it's a little bit different in that we can hear from them in one big group, and that everyone can hear the questions and the answers. And so we're hoping to have a variety and a mix with our Lincoln Day events. And so that's what we're doing this year. And we're really looking forward to going to the train next year. So what we'd like to do at this point is give each of our representatives and senators whatever time they'd like, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 5 at the most, just to tell us what is on their mind, if anything, that they've been working on. But really, all of them want to get to the question and answer period. And so, so have that in your mind as far as what questions you'd like to ask. There are some people that have asked questions on cards, and so that's fine. We'll go through some of those as we can, but we'll also have a microphone that any of you can stand and ask your questions of a specific representative or of the panel. Anything I'm forgetting? Is that sounding okay? All right, let's do it. So here is there we go. We'll start with Representative Kohler and just go down the line.
Thank you. I think I've met most of you. I see a lot of familiar faces. I got to make at least one introduction first. During the session, when we're down there, we have what's called an intern. These are people that are probably going to get into politics someday if they're not scared away during the session. but they do a tremendous amount of work for us and help us extend our reach. And my helper this year, my intern, is Alex Menorah. He's here, stand up, and his friend. I can't say that we're on the same political track all the time, but he listens, and I listen to him, and that keeps us on. But I just want to thank him for coming up. It's a pleasure to represent Wasatch County. That's one thing you get down there. If people don't know you, they come up and say, you know, where you represent or where you're from. I say Midway Heber. Wow, I'd love to live up there. And I said, you and everybody else. I mean, that's where everybody's coming, and it's growing so fast. But they do love it up here. The other thing I'd like to mention, and it's good to see here, but I was in the county council 2 cycles ago. It's a while back when Senator Van Tassel represented us. And that year there was another census, and they alternated all the seats around and shifted them around. And we were, when I say we, there's a bunch of us in here were arguing that we ought to have 1 senator. But because of the crossroads that we were in, we ended up with 3. And I would suggest that the result of that has been phenomenal, because now, instead of just 1 vote for Wasatch County and several others around, we actually have 3, and they all listen. The one that left office last time, bless his heart, we're good friends. He didn't get up here much. Senator Stratton's here, but because we have 3, we have as much or stronger reach and stronger clout here in this county than just about anywhere else. But I'd love to get to the questions, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you. I'm Senator Hinkenside of Montgomery County. I live in Farron, Utah. For those that knows where that's at, it's 45 miles south of Bryce. I represent 9 counties: Carbon, Emery, Grand, San Juan, Wasatch County. I represent Daniel, Charleston, Timberlake, everything south of Center Creek. And basically, in Utah County, Mapleton, Springville, and Santaquin, and then in Garfield, I have Garfield, Wayne, and Kane counties. I go to Kanab, so it's about a 12-hour drive from one end to the other, and so I don't get up here probably as much as I should, but I try to. And as Mike mentioned, being 2 senators or 3 senators, you guys have the landfill that you use in Duchesne, over in Duchesne County, over above Duchesne, so you don't have a landfill here. And you guys were sitting on a $1 or $2 million bond, I believe it was, and Senator Van Tassel called me up. I happened to be the chairman of Natural Resources, and so we were sitting on you guys were sitting on $1 million or $2 that could be used in the county, and Mike was the one that instigated this. Why are we sitting with a bond when the state's actually going to be the one that ever reclaims that? And because you're partners with Duchesne County, we were able to get that levy, back to the treasury here in the county. So it does pay to have other senators, as Senator Stratton's here. I'm from the mining community. My company, I've been in business for 49 years with Industrial Electric Motor Service. We repair all the large industrial mines, motors, and for the power plants and coal mines, all the electrical work underground and surface, and so I've been doing that. And so my interest is to try to keep your lights on, and without all the turmoil that comes towards the mining industry. There's slowly, at one time we were 80% power production by coal. It's down to probably less than 50% now, thanks to natural gas, who Senator Winterton represents the majority of the gas production in the state of Utah. So I'll turn it time to him.
Okay, I'm Senator Ron Winterton. I live in Roosevelt. I serve Duchesne, Uinta, Daggett, Wasatch, and Summit counties. And my interest, my standing committees, I sit on transportation, and this year they put me over political subdivisions. And so that's kind of an interesting place to be. I've sat on the committee for a couple of years, but chairing it now and deciding what we have on the agenda is something different. We have a lot of election bills that are coming to the committee now. We're seeing them filter in. Just 2 weeks of the session left. You'll see some movement on some of the things that we'll do to adjust our elections. I enjoy being here. Family's from Charleston originally, and so I feel like I come home every time I drive through.
Kevin Stratton, it's a real honor for me to be here with you today. This is a gem. Representative Kohler talks about it. Who wants to live here? I find just the way it is. I just like to come and recreate and enjoy the clean air and the good people here. I am Greg Sheriff, and Chair, thank you for the invitation. It's good to see the community leaders here. I just want to share a couple of thoughts real quick on these gentlemen. It's remarkable. There's 75 members of the House. You have 1/75 of the House here. You have 10% of the Senate. There's 29 members of the Senate. So that's a real compliment. Not that I'm not. It's just a real compliment to how important this area is and how valued it is to us and what we value here in the state of Utah. Representative Kohler is awesome. When he first came in the House, he and I worked as the chairs of the natural resource in the House. I served there for 12 years. Now I'm over in the Senate. Grateful for that opportunity to be and serve there. I want to just acknowledge these two good senators. I think between the two, we have 54 million acres in the state of Utah. And I think they probably represent about 40 of those 54 million acres between the two of them. So they really cover a lot of ground. I live in the mouth of Purple Canyon, born and raised on a fruit farm there. My heritage is coming up here on the Wasatch back, selling, peddling strawberries and peaches as our family, and we would love. If we got all the strawberries sold, we could go over to the hot pots here in Midway and go for a swim. And that was always a treat. And get now at the Kohler's, get ice cream there in Midway. But just love this area. Grateful to be here. My focus is constitutional alignment. If you ask me, hey, what's your focus? It's constitutional alignment on a foundation of love of God and man. And I think if we have those three things, we gotta love God before we love man. If we get those reversed, we get ourselves into trouble. But in that order, constitutional alignment, love God and love man, we're gonna get where we need to be. And I was having dinner the other night. One of the ladies said, it's like waking up Christmas morning every day right now. It's so exciting to wake up, turn on the news, see what's going on. And we have there's not been a time in any of our lives, ever, we've had the opportunities that are before us right now. We need to remember that we, the people, are the boss. We're the sovereign. And we have this whole group, this whole blessing of gifts and rights that we receive from God, our creators. He talks about in the Declaration of Independence. And a small portion of those we've delegated to government to secure those rights of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And in that circle of what we have delegated, a little teeny bit is our federal counterpart, but most is the states and the locals. That's where it is. And that's notion of state sovereignty, federalism, we're working really hard on doing a lot in that sphere. All four of us are aligned in all these things, but I just appreciate the notion, the fact, and just remember, we're the servants and you're the boss, so treat us kindly. You don't want to beat up your servants too bad, but keep them in line as well. So that's grateful to answer and respond to your questions. Great. We have some great. I hope you've asked the hard questions, because these three are good to answer hard questions. I'll take it.
Just keep the mic.
Awesome. Okay, very good. Thank you for the introductions. I'm thinking that maybe what we'll do is go from the audience, if anyone has a question, and then we'll use the cards so that those that would like to ask their questions that way are able to do that. We'll go back and forth as we can. Is there anyone that has a question right off from the audience that would like to go first?
I've got one, Jared.
Okay, just 1 second.
How many of you knew that was going to be me? Senator Stratton, thank you. You said something that I had to write down. And first of all, I appreciate all of your service so much. I know that it's a thankless job, because for every time I agree with you or disagree with you, somebody else is the exact opposite. The thing about the GOP or the Republican Party is we are free thinkers, and that can be trouble. But I appreciate that we all have our right to our opinion. So thank you for saying that your job is to secure the rights of the American people and the rights of all of us sitting here today. Thank you. So with that, I have way too many questions, but one that's been weighing heavy on my mind for the last 24 hours are a couple of bills that were in the legislature that I personally, as a delegate, feel are a 1-2 punch to our freedoms. And that is SB 277. Senator Winterton's laughing. I probably already emailed you about that. And then one I heard about today that's kind of the second punch, which is SB 69. And for me, as I understand those, and I am legislative bills for dummies type person, I don't understand them well, so I would love you to help me. But it feels like the people sponsoring these bills and then, you know, how they're voted on, it's suppressing the public's access to public records. And so one bill is, we don't want you, you know, we know it's better for you than you do, and so we want a judge to decide whether you can look at something. That's my first grade, you know, view of that first bill. But the second one is, and if you sue us and you win, you still have to pay your legal bills, even though we were wrong. And so, in other words, the way I look at that is, if I try to get a grandma request, and I'm beaten down and beaten down and beaten down, which we have seen happen this last year and this election year with Phil Lyman, because a lot of us were closely related to that issue. He spent a lot of his own money, a lot of us donated because we wanted access to records, and they were denied or delayed. Now under these two bills, it's like, well, we're gonna let a judge decide if you can have that, and secondly, if it costs you thousands and you lose or you win, whatever, you're out all that money. And it feels, as a little person here up in Heber, like that means sit down and shut up and don't ask questions. That's what it feels like. I'd love to know what you think of those, and am I way off on this? But that's one of those things kind of, I know I have better things to do but worry about. And I do worry because I worry about securing our freedoms.
I'll take a crack at that, thank you. Let me, as a segue in, let me just remind you, being a part-time legislature, we are with you, and we recognize and have great empathy for what you're saying. As a segue in, I've come up with this 80-20 concept, and across the board, really, both sides of the aisle, we really agree on 80% of the stuff unanimously. We really agree a lot more than we disagree. Another 80-20 is on the stuff we disagree about. 80% of what we disagree on is inaccurate information, you know, and it's so important. Thank you for the question. I love to have a good discussion, and I do not at all. In fact, I surround myself with people that think differently than I do. Last thing I need is someone that I need pushback. We all need that, and that's a healthy thing about the Republican Party. You're right, and I love that spirit. The spirit of freedom and liberty is preserved by checks and balances and that healthy tension. Another 80-20 is a lot of times we spend 20% of effort when we ought to spend 80% effort in learning. You know, it's kind of like shoot then aim a lot of times. You know, you see that. So let's 277. 277, the intent is actually to do the opposite of how it's coming across. We currently have a system where a request is made, it's really protracted in getting the feedback and getting the determination made. And we suspect that, you know, in it is intended to be a 30-day turnaround, unless it says 6 or 7 months, but it actually can be a lot quicker than that. And so be more efficient and effective in getting the information out to you. The notion of litigation, attorney costs is very, first of all, it doesn't happen very often, but it's a principle that's in as an attorney, I don't practice, but I was trained as an attorney, and you know, I've got so many strikes against me, politician, attorney, and whatever already. But the principle is, if we need to not have frivolous things taking place, and so there needs to be some recognition of going back to liberty and freedom, you know, taking responsibility for what we're pursuing. So those are some of the parameters. 277, when it came out of the chute, didn't come out finished and polished, and there's a lot of refinement. There's several pieces. I think I received, you know, and you have to recognize a lot of the information is the bear that's being poked, and the bear that's being poked really is the media right now as it came out. And so again, it was at 80-20. There's a lot of misinformation. I actually have a letter that they're in agreement and appreciate where it is currently. But there is the whole process of the legislative intent and having elected people that we elect to go serve us in this democratic republic that we have. This republic that we have is, we're like you. We have those feelings, and just a lot of times we just allow it to work itself through. It corrects itself often. There's a lot of that I think in the last, we've taken some significant hits. Those that have a different agenda are funneling a narrative that we need to just check. So that's how I would respond to that. Do you have,
I will say, I got my information from watching a short KUTV interview with Mike McKellar. And some of the things he said, quite frankly, did raise a red flag for me. And I even saw the gentleman interviewing kind of raise his eyebrows, like, that seems kind of like overreach. And which surprised me from a media personality to raise their eyebrows at Bill, because they love, restrictions. But, so that's why I kind of been digging in. So
Well, thank you. And I'll take a different view here. I conducted the hearing in the Senate side for that. And going into the committee, there was a substitute. And I had read the first one, and I was busily trying to read the sub. And that's what was presented before us. I didn't care for the manner in which it came off. I spoke with the sponsor trying to get him to hold off at least one meeting so that everybody could actually look at it and see what the changes being offered. I voted against the bill just because it was not in my manner. We did not follow procedure to the point where the public had enough notice. I mean, it was made public an hour before committee. And so when we start rushing things like that, we miss things. And I still have my concerns. 80% of all of our grandma requests are done locally. We don't have the backlog in that. Yeah, this last year, exceptional. We had a lot of requests on the state side. The committee, we, as a Senate, do advice and consent on those nominations. And we had been given some names in November. And it's our job to screen them. And we basically threw back a couple of names saying, we don't think they're gonna make it through the process. We asked the governor for more names, in which we did handle it, and we did that in the latter part of, or middle of December anyway. Confirmation wasn't held until the first week of the session. So they were put in place. But I've talked to the committee members there. We have 2 attorneys already on that committee. There's a lot of legal stuff regarding that, and they're getting bogged down trying to figure out, regardless of how we decide, we're gonna have a lawsuit, win or lose. That's just the nature of the beast. So I feel like that we need to give these new members an opportunity to actually jump in and work before we go the other route. And they claim other states do it the way that's being proposed. But if we've been the gold standard and everybody wants to be like Utah, why is it that now we want to change it and be like some other state? Yeah, we can do some refinement in this process, but I don't feel like right now it's time to be jumping into something else that we can't fully vet before the end of the session. So I would much rather see this go to intern and study it, and we have all summer long to do that before we get to it next session. But to do it right now, I think that it's a knee-jerk reaction that we're gonna fix the problem. Do we know that it's broke?
I was just going to say, first off, maybe, there we go. I was just going to say, right now, the average is 150 days for a grammar request, and by then, everything, whatever you're checking, is probably blown over by then. And I don't know if that's intended to slow down or not, but they say that the way this was sold to me was that it would be able to, have a week or two to have a grammar request and have the information at that time. And we just had a grammar request on our public lands, and they said it was, they wanted a 20-year breakdown of everything. Well, it's only been, we've only had it for 9 years, and so, you know, they're asking for, they asked a lot of, you know, so it'd be like a short report, shorter than what they're expecting. But anyway, it's just, when we're all citizens, you know, we're here for a short time, and then we go out, we have to live with the laws we make. That's what's great about our part-time legislature, that we're, you know, we have to go back and live what we do. And so we're interested in what's going on in our communities. If there's corruption or if there's people that's embezzlement, we want to know as well. So we're not trying to cover everybody always makes it sound like we're covering our tracks. Well, our tracks aren't going to be there very much longer. Somebody else will be covering their tracks, but we want to know where they're going as well. And so, you know, we're all in it together. We're trying to do our best. So thanks.
Just really quick, no specific, but I've been involved in, back when I was in the county, a request, and that's several years ago, and it took us months to get a hearing. So the system's broke right now. It's very slow. And I know early on they were talking about getting more hearing officers. McKell's taken a shot at getting somebody full-time that can focus on it and maybe make it quicker. Some of the things he put in the bill, it hasn't come to the House side yet, so it has some problems, but I think it was his effort to try and make it quicker, because everybody here is trying to make that happen, so the request is timely. And if we don't solve that one, we haven't helped anything. So that's kind of where it's going.
Let me just, a quick follow-up.
By explaining the bill, I wasn't defending it. I was just trying to explain the parameters. There are problems with it. It wasn't. But the second bill you asked about, SB 69 failed in committee, so that's dead. So there you go.
You know, I would just say this, and that's why I said, you know, legislative bills for dummies. I was involved in California politics, and I felt like they were all made up of double entendre, double negatives, double positive. By the time you'd end up reading it, you felt like you had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just impossible to understand. And so we need it brought down to the level where we, you know, I can teach my 14-year-old grandson, this is what's happening, and help him understand. You know, rather than, it feels like smoke and mirrors sometimes when it really isn't, you know?
Wonderful, great, thank you. Thanks for the questions. So before we go to Sean will go to you next after this, but we have a few questions that people have written having to do with property tax. So here's the first one. Is the legislature considering addressing the astronomical property tax increases in the county, either by one, limiting percent increase each year, like maybe Prop 13 does for California, or in freezing or limiting for seniors, not just very low income? You know, who would like to start with that one?
Well, yesterday, we debated two bills that Senator McKay is proposing, and he's working on a deferral program. And the proposal is that seniors and that can defer their property taxes until after they're gone, and then when they settle the estate, then that would be the time that the county would settle up. Yeah, so yeah, it's a lien basically, and then he's also working on the formula on setting the base rate for your taxes, so it doesn't continuously go up. This is what it is, and then a small percentage of what it could increase. Along with that, he's also working on the formula for the essentially assessed values, which has a great deal to do with when you see an increase in your property. Sometimes it's because, let's just take Rocky Mountain Power. That's essentially assessed property that crosses county lines, and so the state does the assessing. When they come in and argue the value of their assets, the counties are not even in the room. And so whatever the state tax commission decides on, the difference is the change that comes to your property taxes, and so you end up picking up the difference in that. And that's where those are the counties that have a lot of central assess. You see a big change in your taxes because taxes didn't go up, but the shift came to you instead of letting those corporations pay the taxes. That's been a problem, so he's trying to address that issue also and put the counties back in the driver's seat, or bringing it to the state level, letting us do the arguments for it. That way we would be able to see I mean, on a state level, most of them don't ever see what happens at the state tax commission, and unless you've been involved in it personally, you don't understand that process. So there's 3 bills that I know of that are addressing it. We had one from Senator Wilson, I believe, had one proposal also that was adjusted. So there's about 5 bills that I'm aware of that are trying to tackle what we've seen the last 3 years in the inflation in the valuation of the property. Yeah, granted, it's going up, but if you ask your county leaders, they could always use all the money that is legally to tax, but they don't want to. But by law, sometimes their hands are tied too. You have a fixed rate, and that's what you have to go with. So it's a combination of several different things on property taxes, but I tasked Senator McKay 2.5 years ago to work on this problem, since he is the chair of the Revenue Tax Committee, and he's diligently working at it. But when you tweak something here, you've offset something else, and so I think now he's getting closer to solving it. And we had those bills yesterday on the Senate floor on the 2nd reading, so they'll be moving hopefully to the House next week and let them see if they agree with us.
Yeah, in Wasatch County, where your neighbor sells his home for $1 million or $2 million, and then your house may not be worth that, but his was, and yours is right next to it, and so that basically raises yours up by that. But for Emory County, where I live, we have power plants, and that was our tax base. We don't have big fancy homes down there, and they allowed the power plants, because they're going to kill coal or shut down the coal power plants. They were shut down at 2042 as opposed to, then it changed it to 2035. So they allowed them to accelerate the depreciation on these plants. Well, it cost Emory County $6 million. And so therefore it goes on to the homeowners, because now all of a sudden the industrial are getting this big tax break. But our house my neighbor's not selling his house for $1 million. So my house isn't going up, so it says like I can sell my house and move. It's still worth, say, $200,000. His is worth $200,000, but we're paying the taxes if though it was $1 million home. And so, I know you got a bad one. There's others that maybe even have a worse. And another thing is, and I'm a senior. I'll be 72 this year, and so it's not going to be popular, because most of you are getting close to my age as well. We've already, as they say, well, why should seniors? Well, it costs so much. Everybody wants service. So we're actually the ones receiving a lot of the services. Meals on Wheels isn't going, to the kids that you're actually asking them to pay your taxes. We've already put our debt onto them. They're the ones that's going to pay this interest over time. And I'm just, and so why should they have to bear our burden of give us a Prop 13 and not make us pay the tax? Well, they're going to have to pay it when they inherit your home, and they're going to have to pay it if they get it. They're going to have to pay the increased taxes. And I just think we're shifting so much burden to the next generation or two, and I think it's unfair to them. I'm like I said, I probably should have said that, but anyway, I did, and I'll live by it. So I just feel that my grandkids, they're having a harder time getting by than I was at their age, put it that way, and not looking at near the debt that they are.
Yeah, just one couple of additions here. Part of the property tax problem we've had in Wasatch and Summit County has to do with the inflation that happened after COVID, and then with the general inflation of the dollar. And so part of the rules that we've been working with on the House side, a couple of bills, and probably I think one of the senators doing as well, is to deal with making sure that our houses are the same or at the right value. So if my house is worth $200 and my neighbor's is worth $200, we pay the same tax. But if he got evaluated differently, and so his went up to $400, mine stays at $200, then obviously the tax is going to shift him. That's what's happened and has happened in Wasatch County. We're trying to get some rules in the law that get to push our assessor to do a little bit better. We just got a new assessor, and I'm not sure if Bob's here. Bless his heart. I pray for him every day, but he needs it. But the state tax commission needs to step up and help them if they can't in some of these small counties. So making sure we're assessed properly is part of the problem. The other thing is there's a lot of calls for, as has been mentioned, to give seniors relief, and I'm not quite as old, but I'm close. And so I'm seeing that part, but I also see what happens with my kids. And just realize in the counties that if somebody makes a rule that my taxes get delayed, somebody else is paying it. It doesn't go away. and there's no windfall to anybody, it just shifts to somebody else. Because the counties and the entities, schools, whatever, they get the same amount every year. It's just a matter of who pays it. So if we can get all of our value of our properties that we own equal, that's the best thing we can do to make sure we're all paying equal. And then we gotta really be careful about how much we help the seniors, realizing a lot of seniors don't have an ability to go out and make more money and pay for it. But if they don't, somebody younger is at the same time, and it's, you just have to be careful how it works.
Great. From the audience, Sean, do you still have a question?
Sure.
And then when we go to the audience again, who would like to go next? Okay, someone in through here. Sean.
So I work in the events industry, and the Sundance Film Festival's threatening to leave. Everybody in Park City hates them. Traffic's terrible. I just noticed that going through the state legislature, they have an appropriation for $1.5 million. And in all the years that I've worked events at Sundance, we've always done like the third-party lounges and things like that. So, I mean, Sundance does have a benefit for me, but I've reached out to the Sundance Institute a lot of times to bid on their jobs. And recently, they have chosen to bring in a vendor out of state to come in and do all of their audiovisual, which is what we'd be doing. And so when I saw that 1.5 million appropriation, I mean, 1.5 million is a lot of money to me, right? And I just, I guess my question is with appropriations like that to these organizations, is there any way that you can require them to prioritize utilizing local vendors versus bringing in vendors from out of state? I just like to see local Utah tax dollars stay in Utah if at all possible. And I'm sure this happens in other contracts or other appropriations or whatever as well. But I mean, to me, $1.5 million is a lot of money. I think that there is a positive economic impact in our community by the Sundance Film Festival. But I just like to see that money stay here. And so my question is what can we do to keep that money here? Especially with the appropriation, not necessarily Sundance threatening to leave, doing their tactics they're doing right now per se.
Well, I agree with you 100%, and the sad part is that when they do come here, they bring these out-of-state contractors, they stay, that's the big problem. They like it here and they end up staying. So I'd like to keep it local as much as possible, and a lot of the counties do on their side, the state. Right now, everything's on different appropriations, we all sit on different appropriations, and until they actually have their, I'm not even sure that I wasn't even aware of that appropriation because it's in another committee, and we won't be aware of that any more than anybody else is unless you look it up.
It was going through executive appropriations.
That's why I say once they make it, then we'll be able to see what the appropriations. But we know what it is in our committees, but there's like 7 or 8 different committees, and so I'm not really sure. But yeah, we try to keep much in state as possible, but we also don't want to get in a fighting match with other states where you can't go to Grand Junction and bid on their venues as well. And so, it works reciprocated, and so we got to be careful to some degree of what kind of restrictions we put there, because other states will look at us and say, well, we don't want you here either, so anyway.
Yeah, I know on county level in that, you can do a local preference that if you're ranking anybody on the bidding process, that will have a few more points on it. I ran the rural film incentive a couple times now, and what the rural incentive was is that we can have outside contractors come in, but they don't qualify for the incentive if it's not, they have to spend it locally. And it's a post-performance, so we audit those, and if they don't qualify, they don't get it. And so we're not out anything once we do that, but we make a deal that this is to help the rural counties, and if you don't spend it there, it doesn't qualify. So there are some things I'm not aware. We have a lot of nonprofits that the state helps on the culture and arts line, but as far as the breakdown, that's something we'll have to check on, because I wasn't aware that we were putting a lot of that into Sundance. And we want to keep them here because to the economy, what they say, it's like $26.5 million for those 10 days, and that comes back to feed the local economy. When you start talking about the TRT tax, the rest or the motels pay, and we collect that comes and stays locally, and it helps the economy. So $1.5 million investment to a return of 26.5 to the locals is a pretty good return, but I take, you know, it's important that we make sure that we look after our own to the extent that we can.
Any others? So, you with all of your assignments, your committee assignments and all, Sean, is there anything else that you want to follow up with as far as after this meeting? I wonder if any of you have a committee assignment that maybe Sean should
We have him come clear down at Castle Dell.
All right.
We bring, you know, he's the greatest.
These guys know me pretty good, so.
Okay. All
We
right.
try.
Sounds good. We've got it. All right, here's the next one from a written question. It has to do with property tax again. No? Mind if I use that one for a minute? Is Lori still here?
You see what I can do.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so property tax caps. Questions about caps. So, what about the idea of having an assessment limit that's based annually or something similar?
Something like commission, don't talk to me about it, he's an attorney there. Is there anybody that likes property tax? No. Maybe we can just talk about a few principles. As a matter of principle, first of all, let me give a perspective. Utah, we are really trying to balance the strengthen the economy, get it right, and do the things that are going to help across the board. We do have, it's quite remarkable, our tax structure in the state of Utah is recognized nationally for multiple years of being the best in the nation. But that doesn't mean that we don't need banks and coolings and course corrections. And one of the challenges we're having is with our property tax. A matter of principle is you want to tax consumption as much as you can and not productivity. And, you know, obviously there's not, I don't think property tax would be way down on the consumption piece. You know, that's why you have the president talking about tariffs and so forth, because that goes to the consumption concept. But we are, I would say, my response to this is we are really trying to address appropriately the tax consequence and the impact of what's taking place with our property tax. One of the things that we're trying to do, need to recognize is, I threw out that 54 million acre statistic. We have, the challenge we have is a majority of our property in the state of Utah is not taxed. And we're really trying to, tax principles, you want to lower the rate and spread it as broad as you can so that everybody is lifting appropriately and you don't have that in proportion in that sphere. So I would just report what we're seeking. That's why you see up I-15 and different places you see let Utah control Utah lands. We talk about our national debt being $35 trillion, big number, right? We actually, in the state of Utah, have just one of our elements, fossil fuels. We have $150 trillion of value in the ground, and yet the past administration wanted to completely shut that down. I recognize the need to be environmentally sound and wise. We can do that. We have the technology to do that, to harvest those resources that are before us. If you don't like fossil fuels, then we need trace minerals. We have all the trace minerals to deal with renewable. I mean, we are so rich. It's kind of like being a farm. I love peaches. It's like having this beautiful peach crop and picking 3 of the peaches, not the whole tree. You know, so we're really trying to help and ease one. You know, one that we're not thinking about is we're trying to ease the tax burden by what we're doing with the policies and our access to our natural resources. But that issue of putting a cap and is certainly on the table. They're all on the table at this point, trying to get and address the need. We are very concerned about that. And part of it is recognizing the use of the tax as well and having people account. I mean, I get beat up when we talk about education funding. They say, gosh, you've got this Utah Fit Sal, you're giving an $8,000 scholarship. And
our WPU is fourth, you know, the numbers, that 80-20 rule, getting all the facts. In reality, we're spending $15,000 per every student, all 675,000. That $8,000 Utah fits all is a bargain to be able to have a safety valve where some that need special opportunities and it's not that they're not fitting into one size fits all have those. So we need to look across the board of how we're spending and also how it's going out the back door, as my grandma used to say. You know, a person that's managing a house can waste more money out the back door than the person that earning it can bring in the front door. So we're trying to get the property tax issue is key in that, and so those are some of the broad principles that I would offer.
Jared, I don't mean to be rude, it's your meeting, but I see Congressman Kennedy over here. Maybe we ought to bring him up.
Let's do it. I think he's ready. All right. You want to go for right now?
Oh, we could also sit, bring him up here, like to share it with him.
Yeah, please do. Join us if you will. That'd be great.
You know, property taxes, I represent Kane County, and this was a few years ago, but you know, 90% of their county is owned by the federal government or the state government or SITLA or whoever it might be, and a lot of it's hidden in a monument. And they collect about at the time they were collecting about $8 million from the citizens that live in Kanab and a few small Johnson County, very few small towns in that area, Glendale. But you know, they got $1 million. The 90% is paying $1 million. That's what they get in PILT money, $1 million. But the citizens are paying $8 million, and they have probably actually 5% of the actual property, but 5 because we have a state park. So think about that. I mean, it's a pretty
PILT is fair.
PILT is payment in lieu of taxes.
From the
And
feds.
so it's pennies on the dollar of what they should actually pay. And so they're having, you know, as far as the government's freeloaders in Kane County. And also Grand County, it's 95%. So, but the whole state of Utah is 66%. So it's really kind of unfair for us to get such a small amount. And it's fine to have wide open lands for people to come and visit and stuff, but it has no value, especially when it's a monument. They cut out grazing, they cut out any extraction industries. And that's where he's talking about uranium, or all of our minerals are at, is in the Bears Ears and the Grand Staircase. And so we're being restricted of what we can even produce on our lands that they have. The power lines, the big power lines that came through, it's easier to put power lines onto condemned private property and tribal lands, the Ute tribal lands, than it was to go on the BLM. And we have no recourse for them. And that's why we wanted up here to find out what's going on.
Yeah, take all the shots at the Fed guy, right? Absolutely. Right on. First I'd say your representatives and senators, where's the rest of the representatives, man? We're senatorially heavy here. 3 to 1? You can handle one of you can handle 3 of these fellas. So, but I love these guys. They're great people, and they work hard for you. I've worked with all of them for years now, and these are really good representatives. And I entirely echo your sentiment of frustration and offense that the federal government is in control of so much of our land. One of the realities that I just share with you fellas that I've just been thinking about now that I've moved into this role, and it's an honor to be here with you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm a subpar substitute for John Curtis. He's now in the Senate, and I'm trying to fill big shoes. I think he's worked really hard for you over these many years that he served, and I'm happy to try to do my best. By the way, I'll also point out that I've got Jared, my chief of staff here, and where's Connor as well? Connor, thank you. If you have any issues, let's catch afterwards. We're happy to, my staff, we want to work hard for you, but get this, fellas, is that there are 52 congressmen from California, and there's 4 from Utah. So does anybody, if you start running the numbers of 435, there are 4 of us from Utah trying to defend and fight and move this stuff forward as the lands, and they don't care. When it comes to pennies in lieu of trillions, like Kevin, you were just saying that's what PILT is. Can you imagine if we had access to 80% of our land instead of 30% of our land? What would happen to this state? Now, I love our national lands. It's great to have these grand vistas, but at the same point, we can't use them the way that we know that we could. And it's to our detriment and the country's benefit. And if you start running the numbers of, a guy like me opening a bill file to change that is there's a bunch of people on the East Coast, the West Coast, and the South of this country. They don't care. And if they do care, they're going to oppose it because they love coming out here and recreating on our lands. And we love having them here. Their tourist dollars are valuable to us. But what they don't get, and they call PILT rural welfare. They think it's some sort of money that they should cut, that they think it's a waste of money. And I say that land, it is pennies in lieu of trillions. We could use that land so much more effectively. So we've got this lawsuit moving forward, and I'm entirely supportive of everything we can do. One of the struggles we have is just the numbers. It's just there's a lot of people that look at this place, and frankly, I've ran through some of the history of how Utah started as a state. The whole country was against us when we started as a state. It's actually the country made sure our Constitution disempowered us on several levels because they didn't trust those Mormon pioneers that started this place. So we kind of started off in a hard spot. We're still in a bit of a hard spot, but as our population continues to grow, we go from 4 to 5 congressmen at some point in the future. You know, our political prowess over generations will improve, but it is a really frustrating aspect. And I'll just say to you, I'm dedicated as your federal servant to try to do my best to make sure that our lands are used responsibly and in the hands of the locals wherever they can. Because I know you love your land, you take good care of it, and when it comes to the state, county, and the cities, that they can do these things. I want Utah to be bigger, and I want Washington, D.C. smaller. They do too much, and you know, that's, Jared, I don't, you shut me down when you want to, but Doge and Elon Musk and all this stuff that's going on, okay. Wow. Well, let me help you out here a little bit, because Wednesday, I got lit up. 75% of the room imported from Salt Lake. These were Salt Lake Antifa protesters that came to my town hall on Wednesday, and they were on fire trying to tear down any efforts of President Trump or Elon Musk. Raise your hand if you're in favor of what's happening with President Trump and Elon. Oh my goodness. Well, I love being here. It's really great to be here. I'll take on, there's videos and tape recordings of nefarious Congressman Kennedy on Wednesday and how dumb I am and how terrible I am, because I don't think Elon Musk was doing a Nazi salute. I think it was an awkward wave to the crowd. These people, they believe Nazis are in every closet of every Republican, and that we're all just closeted Nazis. And I'm just like, that was just a goofy wave. By the way, when you fellows run for federal office, you always have to wave off to your side. Don't do the front wave. They'll catch you, and I'm not going to do it right now because somebody will take a picture and they'll say, "Look, Kennedy's a Nazi because look, he's doing the salute." It's like, this is nonsense. These people pull out the Nazi claim with everybody that they oppose. Everybody's a Nazi, and it's so. Anyways, I'm grateful to be here with you. I could go on, and these fellas have a lot of good things to say. But I just want to say to you, I will fight vigorously to represent you and serve you in Washington, D.C. I think we're heading in the right direction. Here's a few numbers that you might think are interesting. Is we have 2.5 million federal employees that are often, when you talk about BLM and Forest Service, these people are weaponized against our locals. These people are driving around on government-sponsored trucks trying to find people like you and get you in trouble, when in fact you're just going about your average business. They want to close down our RS-2477 roads that we've been using for hundreds of years. They want to take these roads away from us. They want to take our water rights as well. Over and over, the Biden administration is trying to do everything they can to take our water rights, which has always been a state purview. Water rights are a state issue, not a federal issue. And I will stand vigorously to make sure this state is empowered, that we will fight against these overreach, these efforts that they have. But it is a battle that it takes a coalition. I'm working with my colleagues on the Republican side, but I'm very supportive of shutting down some of this nonsense workforce stuff, because 2.5 million employees, if we can get this, it's an 8-month buyout. When was the last time your employer needed you to move on, was going to give you 8 months, paid vacation and benefits to find a new job and then move on? And if we get 10% of that workforce to take us up on that offer, we'll save $300 billion a year ongoing. It's like, oh my goodness, that's just with right-sizing our bureaucrats. These people the Dems are trying to claim that all these people are vital workers, that if they're let go, Armageddon is going to happen, and somehow Granny's going to be pushed off the cliff, and all this terrible stuff's going to happen. And it's like, Many of these people, you don't know this, but and now that I'm going to Washington DC, which I'll be back on Monday, and I won't be back here for 3 weeks, and I'm sad because I love being here with you and I love serving in the legislature. But in Washington, we're driving around, and people that know the town, they're like, see that federal building over there? Nobody works there. Nobody goes to work there. They haven't been to work for ages. They don't come into work. They remote work or they virtually work. I'm like, when was the last time you had to do your work and you got to just sit at home and do it in your pajamas on the computer? Look, if your job is that ancillary, if you don't need to come into work, then take the 8-month buyout, which is very generous. You go out and find a real job and start paying taxes and like doing something that's going to make you feel good about yourself instead of taking a paycheck that is in some cases unnecessary. So I'm grateful to be your servant. I want to try to work, and we're working to right size this. There's a lot more to say, but Jared, I'll just give it back to you, and I'll take any questions anybody has, or if you feel want to talk about something.
It's great. It's great to have you here. Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so much. We've got about 40 minutes left, so with our time, we're going to go to the audience. We're going back and forth with questions. And so I'm going to come over.
Jared, one question, or not question, before you go, and appreciate Representative Kenny. Now we got promoted back to Congressman. Excuse me. He was a senator in the state when I got to know. It's really good. We're talking about, though, we started this conversation about property tax, and the feds need to pay more. But I'll just give you this, and you need to think about it a little bit. When you get your property tax bill, there's a lot of steps that have happened before that. Most of the things, there's been budgets created because of demand of citizens for services. 72% of mine went to the schools, and yeah, that's a problem. The county has its things that it has to do. You got special districts, but they all create these budgets based on services they need to send. When I was in the council, probably, if not the least, but one of the least attended meetings we had is our budget meetings. Once those budget meetings are over, the die is cast. Now, there's some evaluations of properties that can maybe make variations, but it's set. When the school district sets their budget, it's done. And to complain when you pay that is too late. You got to get out to these budget meetings, you got to get involved and be there, or it doesn't matter, because once it's set, we don't have a choice. So I just give you that as an incentive to get out and be involved. You can make a difference. Thank you. Go ahead.
Questions right here.
Hi, thanks for coming today. We appreciate it. No, actually, Mike, you've done a lot of work on property tax and trying to fix it within Wasatch and Summit counties, but also statewide. So I want to thank you for that, because I think some of the questions that were presented earlier, we're not talking about how we're spending taxes. We're talking about how we're being assessed. And it's still not corrected. And I'm just encouraging all of you to put the Utah Tax Commission's feet to the fire about overseeing counties. For over a decade, the Utah Tax Commission was rubber stamping whatever the counties were sending in. And I think that's where a lot of our issues stemmed from. So that's my comment on that. The other thing I want to mention is the Grandma Bill, SB 277. I want to let you know you're not crazy, and that the citizens have been getting roadblocks on grandma requests and doing initiative and referendum petitions for the last decade. I personally have gone to the State Records Committee 3 times in the last decade with the Wasatch Taxpayers Association, and my comment to you gentlemen are, I think there needs to be a legislative audit done on why we have so many more denials of grandma requests coming out of local governments and even state governments. Because I went to the State Records Committee 10 years ago, you'd wait a month to get on the docket. So there are more denials happening, and also in referendum petitions, it's an automatic denial on any referendum petition now, and the citizens have to go to district court to appeal. 10 years ago, it used to be the Lieutenant Governor's office. And my question to you is, the Lieutenant Governor's office is supposed to be overseeing elections. So why did we lose a free appeal as a citizen to the Lieutenant Governor's office. Now we have to go to district court, hire an attorney. Most citizens cannot afford to go to district court, let alone how to fill out paperwork. You need an attorney to go to district court. And that's what I'm afraid is happening with SB 277, is now it's going to be a judge. And it's going to be a court proceeding. That's my concern about it. Lastly, I just heard that the Mountain Lands Association of Governments that handles a lot of services throughout Wasatch, Summit, Utah County, Meals on Wheels was brought up earlier. I just found out 97% of their funding is federal. So I'm wondering if the state legislature has been talking about some of these programs that we have been counting on through MAG are not going to be available to the citizens of Wasatch County, and are you guys talking about that and how our property taxes are going to have to pay for some of this now too? Thank you.
Do you want to take that one on the message thing or records request? I think you said a bunch about it. Is there anything more to add?
I don't know which one. I'll start with where you finished on the federal funds issue. We actually, several years ago, put a task force together on a federal funds analysis. We've gone through, we've asked every agency to come up with a backup plan if that dried up. And so that we are aggressively ongoing having discussions, but you're right, as you look at the MAG, and that is a federally funded issue. We need to recognize our budget this year will be about $29 billion, the largest, and Utah, again, being the state that's in the best shape of the nation, is still our contribution to that budget, the largest, is coming from federal money. The good news is there's an analysis done on the actual taxes paid by the state federally and the money coming back. And we're not getting more money than we're paying. So this whole concept of we could carry our load and take care of it, just let us be. Let that democracy, the laboratories of democracy that the 50 states are meant to be, to solve the problems and not look to Big Brother or Little Brother, because really the states are the Big Brother. They've delegated to Little Brother to do the things that are necessary. So that's, in answer to the question there, and you want to talk more about 277? Is that, you're making some great points, and the intent is to make it, going in, the intent is to streamline and make it easier for that process to play out, less expensive and easier. There is some real challenges at the local level, you're right. So I don't know if you want to keep talking about that.
Well, I guess you kind of insinuated that there was misinformation out there by the media, and I'm just explaining that I've actually been to the State Records Committee. It's not a broken system. It has been working, and it's been free to the citizens to go appeal on their own. They have to do work. It has to be based on code. You can't just say, I don't like this. You have to be prepared, but it is the most professional system I've ever seen, and I don't think it's broken. My comment was we need to check these public entities and see why they're denying so many more grammar requests by the public. That's where I think the backlog is happening. Thank you.
I think how I would respond, I think there's a challenge if we make a request, we don't hear back for 8 months. That's the point I'm trying to make there.
And getting back to Meals on Wheels, I didn't say that, I said that's who's receiving the services. It's the senior senators. And you say federal dollars, well, our children pay federal dollars as well. They pay taxes as well. So they're being taxed for our services. So, it doesn't matter where the money, it comes out of their pocket.
No, I know, you just mentioned.
That's all I mentioned. And on 277, you're saying it's broke, but then you're saying when we're trying to fix it, we're not fixing it the way you want, or I didn't understand what you meant by that, because yeah, it's broke, so we're trying to fix it. and that's the way that he's trying to do it. I don't know anything, you know, I'm not an attorney, I don't have any idea, but we're trying, and that's why we have public hearings. You had it. How many people were there at public hearings? Give an alternative suggestion how to do it.
I say leave it the way it is, the 7.
What you just said is broke. You said
it's not broke.
Oh, it's not broke. Well, I
I'm
thought
saying
everybody's
it's
saying
not
it is
broke.
broke. It says
It's not
150 days to do it.
My concern too is the governor has sole discretion, thank you,
To remove that judge. If he doesn't like the performance of that one person who's deciding this, the governor can remove that person. I think that's much too much power in one person's hands between the judge and the governor's office.
I think 277 is gonna have a tough time, so don't lean on that yet. But that said too, though, I think you say it's broken, maybe I misunderstood, it's not broken necessarily, but it's very laborious to get it. I mean, it takes months and months and months, and I think that's kind of the energy to push some of these to start changing it. Because I know I've talked to McKell, and the reason he did this is trying to speed up the process so that it takes so long. But I agree with you, if it becomes a judicial process, we've gone the wrong way, for sure. Anybody else?
I'll just go back to your statement on MAG and that. All the AOGs, the Association of Governments, they're the entity in which is a fallback for the locals to administer federal funding. It's a pass-through for us. We get that money at the state level and push it out to them to administer, whether it's the HUD financing, the seniors, Medicaid, and that. They administer it, and from my perspective, I'll let them have it, because that's a lot of grant writing and the red tape to administer that money. You and I won't do it because, you know, they look over your shoulder for every T and I that's dotted, and I think they do a good job, and maybe we're gonna be tying their hands if the funding goes away, but again, there's gotta be the discussion. Alternatively, do we continue that? And if so, where do we come from? Because at the state level, and we opened up our income tax, which is our education revenue, we opened it up 2 years ago. I think the citizens allowed us to do it and to help with the match money that we have to do for those programs as it is. And we're pretty well capped out of what we can take out of that account. So we do have to look at another alternative, and maybe it's a can of worms. I'll talk about something that a bill that's been proposed, and it's a creative way, but when you pay your property taxes, it goes to the county and then it goes to the school district. The bill is proposing that the school district portion comes to the state. We'll put it in our general fund, which we have, other than user taxes, we don't have revenue going in there. The income tax for our education continues to grow. Constitutionally, we can't use it all. So that continues to grow, and we have needs, and so we're asking to have that money come to the state. We will pay out of the income tax. The same amount that is paid in comes right back to you, but then it will give us some flexibility to use general fund money to meet those other needs, because right now, unless we raise taxes, we're not going to meet the needs. And it's a creative way of thinking. We're not trying to shortchange anybody or any school district. We're just saying, instead of the county collecting it, it'll go to the state, and then we will pay them back out of the income tax. And that's on the education portion. That's a bill that's out there right now that we've discussed, and it's thinking outside of the box, because other than raising taxes, I don't know how else we're going to meet those needs.
I just add one thing. We talked about federal dollars coming in here. Musk and Doge is working. Someday they're going to find something that pays us. We better not feel bad about it. We'll just leave it there.
All right, very good. So when it comes to the written questions that have been submitted, the most of the questions had to do with property taxes. But the second largest group had to do with housing, affordable housing in Wasatch County. So let me put two questions together. The first one is that, are there any bills this session that would support our efforts to bring more affordable housing to Wasatch County. And then along with that, with all the growth that's going on in Wasatch and Heber, and the impact on traffic and the environment, and increasing taxes, what can we do about housing and growth?
I'll just take a shot at this and let everybody else fix it. When you live in Wasatch County, well, let's just take the state. The governor's got a thing going right now, and it has been for a year or two, and he's got a lot of support in lots of areas where the only thing that we have to do to get affordable is build more. I would testify it's not going to work in Wasatch County. If you put 1,000 square foot little place together down here, it's still going to go for $500,000. If you're down in Sandy or whatever, it may work. So we have to be treated a little bit different. And unfortunately right now, though, the building system is also starting to be staged, and rules are coming through the legislature that tie the hands of both cities and counties in their ability to make reasonable decisions about housing, to keep communities and other things like that, whether it's being able to build in your backyard and put a house in a small yard or some other reason. But my push since I got there, not only for this, has been to keep these decisions local and let the community decide. You vote for these people, they make decisions, face them, and make these decisions for our community. But when it comes strictly to affordable, it's going to be really difficult with the momentum that we see. And the fires in California probably just added another line to come and want to live in the mountains. And it's going to be a really difficult thing. If you live in Farron, he's probably love a neighbor. Send him down there.
No, not me. I chaired the Economic Development and Workforce Services Committee for interim, and housing reports to that committee. And we've got two bills that are making their way through right now, another stab at how do we adjust the affordable living. Over the last 4 years, we've had state funding tied for transportation needs, and that it's been tied to the housing market. It's not the correct way to do it, but we tied a project that they come in and they want the incentives, and that 80% or 20% of the project has to be affordable housing. Well, you build all those apartments and condos down in Salt Lake, you think, oh, we got a lot of housing, but it's not affordable. You can't tell me that, you know, $2,000 a month for an apartment is affordable housing. And we create a lot of housing, but the developers have taken advantage of this. So 20% of their projects might be, you know, lower income people, and then the rest of it is they're making a killing off from it. And now they're adjusting away from that and trying to come up with ways. Last year we had a bill come through that said that you could, Kevin would call it a mother-in-law's apartment or a college kid apartment, but you could turn your garage into one of those. Well, that goes against local ordinances, but we're saying at the state level we've got a crisis and we've got to handle it somehow. But we need to keep it on the level of the local level, but also allow you guys the flexibility to allow that to go on. And sometimes that gets into the building regulations, and we have one right now that adjusts some more on the zoning ordinances, what the locals can do. Might be heavy-handed, but it's going to be an option because we're not coming up with all the answers, and we have to be open-minded enough locally to allow some of this to go on. And this hits me hard. I have 2 married kids living with me right now. And I've had one there for 2.5 years because she can't afford to get into her own home. The other one moved in last year. And we're both, I mean, we're doing the best we can, and we're trying to get him into a home. And it's not any cheaper out in the basin than it is right here. And building materials keeps it high. I gave them land, but that doesn't solve the problem. I mean, you got to have something there to even mortgage it. And so everybody's facing that. And we're open to suggestions. We've got some really good minds trying to tackle the problem. And if you have suggestions, I'd like to hear them, because we've got some bills coming through that hopefully will be another way to help with the housing. The governor had 35,000 homes in the next 10 years that we need to build. I don't see them getting any cheaper. You can build them smaller, and the way that the real estate is, and they're still going to be valued at over 500,000. And a new married couple can't afford $500,000 home.
Yeah, I think the government should stay out of it completely, because you help one, but you hurt 9. Because all you've done is helped him get a more expensive home. And the sad part is, if you want to help somebody, help them get a home that's already built, that they can remodel or something, help them a little bit with that. But you know, this doesn't qualify them. They got to build a new structure. So it's a contractor's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a contractor's dream to have federal dollars or state dollars paying for, you know, like I said, I think they can't help everybody. So all you do is raise it for everybody else, in my opinion. So I'm not very pro that way either.
I agree with what Senator Hankins is talking about, although it definitely is a local issue, but Senator Mike Lee has sponsored the Houses Act, is what he calls it, which this makes perfect sense, and my team and I will do everything we can to help this move forward. We already talked about the federal land, but the point is that if there is any federal land contiguous to a county or a municipal organization that wants to purchase for affordable housing that federal land and use it for affordable housing, then they'll plumb it and they'll electrify it. But those federal lands, and that's where I've talked about the federal lands, and to get it all, it's a big ask for these people that don't understand what that means to us. But to get contiguous parcels that would address a deep-seated need for us in the state of Utah, that could make sense to these people in Washington, D.C. So contiguous lands that are federal lands that a municipality or a county could purchase for affordable housing, that we could then nibble away and get some of these federal lands under our control and build housing that's affordable for our individuals. Very supportive of that, and I see that as kind of one of these compromise ideas. So definitely Washington, D.C., if we got involved, would only make things worse in most cases. So I don't support us getting involved in housing market in the state of Utah, but that is one concept that's out there, and I'm supporting Senator Lee in working through that.
Great, thank you. We have limited time, really only about 5 minutes left for maybe one more question. So if you can just keep your question maybe to 1 minute, and then we'll try to do responses within about 4, and then we're going to get to if there's any county council or city mayors or council people that would like to speak.
Hi, Kate Becker. Telling you my bias, I am a resident of Midway, but I'm the county manager of Morgan. So right, welcome to my life. I truly feel that a lot of what is wrong can be fixed by stopping unfunded mandates. Senate Bill 84 last year, which we 1000% support. We want student resource officers, we want our schools protected, but at the end of the day, that ticket price ends up on the general revenue fund of the county. I'm Republican because I believe in small government and local control. I've been in government, federal, all the way down to city. County government is my heart. They elected these people for local control. Let them have it. So when you pass things like Senate Bill 84, and takes $180,000 average for one SRO, and you have to have one in every single school, and that's on the ticket price of the county, but then you're talking about assessed valuation. At the end of the day, our assessed value, whether it goes up, has nothing to do with how many dollars come in, unless we do truth in taxation. And truth in taxation makes the Lukes, the Marks, the Kendalls of the county look like complete bad guys, because they're having to increase the tax base on how many dollars come in so we can afford these unfunded mandates. So if you think it's such a great idea, the state, fund it. And I think what better idea than passing some constitutional amendment that you can't pass these things on to the county, but then take away our control, or the city, or the school district, and take away our control unless you're willing to put your dollars where your mouth is. Thank you.
One of the towns that I represent, Hanksville, Utah, 14 children in their grade school. Think about it. I mean,
$180,000.
Yeah, 14 children. Anyway,
They're safe.
I agree with you.
They're safe, though.
They are safe anyway. Most of them kids probably back.
You know, the school safety has been a big issue, and we've got a representative that's really been doing homework on that, and he's been all over the U.S. and down to Georgia and Florida, where these shootings have taken place. And I met with him the other night because he's got another proposal, but his proposal this year was $273 million to get the basics of the next step of this. And as a state, we can't afford that. What's low-hanging fruit in that? And so I said, is it necessary? And he says, it's not a matter if it's going to happen here, but when. Well, none of us want to see that happen in our schools. And we have to take it serious enough to work. And you're absolutely right. I'm against any unfunded mandates. As an ex-county official, I know what that meant to my county when they passed and changed our, we call it JRI billing, which changed some of the real bad felonies to misdemeanors. That now put it on the county, and they passed the buck to us. And it was a huge hit to our county that year. And so I'm very sensitive on what does this bill do to the locals on that. So my perspective, I do keep that in mind.
Thank you, and I appreciate the support for your comment. I had that same conversation with Bill's sponsor yesterday. And the response is that if we don't like that officer, there's other options. And there's even an option you can opt out. And so there's patterns, I think, that that's my how I respond to that. But it's a matter of principles we've been talking about. We need to remember the principle of free market. Like all it works. The principle of local control. One of the challenges, for example, with the increase in housing is the regulatory cost at the local level. 20% of the cost is in the regulation. So how can we improve the regulation reform at the local level? The government closest to the people is best for the people. All those principles are playing out in what we're trying to do. If there's an unfunded mandate, we shouldn't pass the bill. The principle is you have to live within your means. And in my response is there wasn't any unfunded mandate because there's options within the bill to opt out. And that's a fundamental principle in that piece of legislation. So there's the principle, we can't sway from the principles that have gotten us where we are in a positive way, and we need to continually course correct against those things that take us away from that. So I appreciate the comment, 100% with you, and I think what we need to do is ensure that government is providing information and then choice at the local level to get where we need to get. So thank you.
Anyone else want to chime in on that one? Okay. So this will end this panelist portion of today, and so thank you. Thank you so very much for being here. We've all traveled. We wish you well. Tell your family. Wish them well. We're grateful that they were here. Okay, very good. Well, with the 10 minutes or so that we have left, I know that Councilman Luke Searle expressed some interest in taking a minute, so Councilman, if you want to head up, that would be great. Are there any other local legislators or elected officials that would just like to take 2 minutes and address while we have people together? Raise your hand, and if you do, and then the mayor. Okay, so Councilman Searle, then Mayor Franco. Is there anyone else? Okay, great. We'll go with those two.
Okay, thanks, Sheriff. I just wanted to take a second. I love coming to the Lincoln Day Breakfast. I started this in high school. I love coming and just hearing from our elected officials, but just being around people who love America, love our country, share the same values as the Republican Party. what we're up to in the county council, again, we have some other county council members here, Kendall Crittenden, Colleen Bonner, Mark Nelson, so if you have any hard questions, divert them to them. But they're great. It's been great to work with them over the last 2 years, and I've got 2 more years left in my term. But again, I'm just super excited also to every day wake up and see what the Trump administration's up to. I feel like there's a saying that Ronald Reagan has said where the most terrifying words are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Well, I feel like it's the exact opposite for now, right now, where all these federal agencies, they come in and they get a knock at the door from these people like, hey, I'm from the Trump administration, I'm from DOJ, and I'm here to check your books. And it's like, some of these agencies have never, ever experienced any kind of oversight, which I just think is a really good thing. Hopefully don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but at the same time, I feel like those are some great things. Wasatch County, we're growing just slightly, just a little bit. We have been for the last couple of decades, and it probably will be in the future. As we do so, I have the feeling that the government doesn't need to grow here at the rate that we're growing. But that's not easier said than done. But us in Wasatch County, I think we have a big focus on our core mission, which is public safety, making sure infrastructure, and then the services that we're doing in a fiscally responsible way. Part of that is we're nearing the 60th year of our county administration building of when it was constructed. It's been used for 60 years. It's a great building. But at the same time, there's some limitations with that. And as we're growing, we've got to look for, we're looking right now for a site close to the Southfield Park for this new administration building. But if we can do so and build it in a way that lasts another 60 years, that's a fiscally responsible way of doing so. We're also looking at an overhaul of our general plan. We've gotten a couple updates over the last couple of decades, but it hasn't been really looked at as a revisit or a redo since 2002. So there's a lot of things that we need to be able to look at there. I don't think the update of that is to hope to encourage more growth. I think it is more of how can we preserve the character of this wonderful valley. And then, is that good? Good? Okay, last thing, we've got a couple senators still here. We just passed an increase of our property tax abatement relief that the county is going to take on for our seniors, because we really care about you seniors. Even though you may not care about yourselves, we care about you in the fact that some of you have been here your entire lives and have built this valley, built this country, built this state, and ultimately as these property taxes go up and up and up, you leaving your homes and us having this as a housing strategy of kicking old people out of their houses so young people can move in is a short-sighted. We need our seniors, we need the people who have built this. So we're really supportive of that. We increased the income limit from $40,000 to $60,000 and try to get some kind of relief for those kinds of people, because we recognize that it costs a lot more to live in this state. And so there are some bills that are looking at ways to be able to address this, but ultimately in my mind, deferrals are not a solution. Deferring your taxes and then having an ultimate death tax on your bed of you're giving it to your prosperity is not something that people are going to want to do, or something that we should do. We give tax credits for kids. I have my kid here somewhere. We give tax credits for developers and incentivizing lots of growth. It's okay for us to be able to say we should give some fairness for those seniors that are not making any income or very low amounts of income, so that we can be able to have them here, because it's overall a good thing for us. So that's my point of view. The council agreed with me in passing that resolution, and we're working on that. So if you want to contact your senators or representatives, they're here as far as a bill like that goes to support our seniors. Let's not pull the rug out from under them as we're working on this. It's not a huge amount of money. Anyways, but that's what we're doing. If you have more questions, let us know. We're just going to be working on those things over the year. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a wonderful meeting. We've learned a lot. I wish I could take time to talk with you about these major issues that we're dealing with in Heber City. It's growth on steroids. It is. But my commitment to you is accountability, transparency, efficiency, and effectiveness, and make growth pay for itself. That's a battle I haven't been able to win. I wasn't able to win on the airport expansion either, but I kept trying. We have won on $10 million open space bond, because now it's been allocated for 9 different projects to save over 600 acres just here on the valley floor. That's a real win. And I'm seriously hoping that the county council will propose even another open space bond this year, even though you may not be happy about that. But to me, it protects our quality of life. It protects the character of why we came here in the first place. We want the rural environment, and that is a huge focus for me, to protect our air and our water quality. Because if we lose that, we're losing what is so precious here in our valley. So we do have a new air quality monitor that the state installed last year over by Southfield Road. We're going to be able to get a baseline. We hope to keep our clean air here. I have pushed so hard to get a stormwater management plan and to try to protect the natural springs that now we're putting into parks, so we can all enjoy that part of the new development that's coming. Believe me, we're juggling issues as fast as we can. It's crazy but sad that we are doing things at the local level now that we never want Washington, D.C. to do. We're having to do deed restrictions in housing, right? And we're working with a nonprofit through Mountain Lands to be able to monitor and manage those deed restrictions. Some on the city council want to take away the promises that the developers have made and use money to do economic development elsewhere when we only have, maybe you think it's a lot, we have probably around 700 to 800 units that could be deed restricted in the future for government, county, city, fire district, sewer district, power, employees in the future. But that affordability of the government definition of affordability is not affordable. It's not affordable. The 80% AMI, or average median income, is not affordable for most people that have been living here in this valley. So it's complicated. There's a lot of ins and outs. There's a lot of requirements. I keep pushing for impact fees to pay for the needs. I keep pushing for people to build their roads the way they need to. And we'll see. Just so you know, there is an election this year in the city. I'm up for election as well as 2 other council members. And please pay attention to the debate that's coming on that and see what kind of city government you want. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Okay, attendees, thank you so very much for giving us your time this morning. Please drive safely. It's good to be in America. Thank you for what you've done.
Had my hand up and I didn't get called on. You are supposed
I saw you. I was well done. I saw you taking all kinds of notes. I do. I always take. Yeah. My mind can't remember.
Well, my question is the last time we looked at it, it seems like there's a lot of changes. I'm just trying to understand, what is it you're actually doing this year?
Yeah, so, in June, and I work with some others that are here, like Handling in the Corners, like Carolina. They've been elected to
My neighborhood, 30 to 50%
Well, we've got a new Secretary of Human Services that our skies on his priorities. I mean, I don't know that he's in his but honestly, I'm waking up to a blue sky. 2 years later, it's a tic-tac-toe graph. And I don't think people understand this. Done to us, the policies that we have. So I just, mistakes
It's really bad. So there's 2 organizations.
opposite of what this new administration reaches reflect. I mean, on social media, I can't tell. I'm writing hotels. What is going on in Utah? We are supposed to be infrastructure.
I treat you okay.
And
I was glad that a lot of the discussions on poverty tax. Yeah. Because our poverty tax is and I retired. So unrealized gains.
They have a process that works.
We went to the county council and petitioned them.
Seemed like it was the number one, so hopefully we can keep it on. What you got planned for the rest of the day?
We're going to the Hale.
Oh,
Linden.
good. What are you gonna watch?
It's right. It's the first one they got here. So we're going to
Good. Yeah, we love those. They are awesome.
a good job anyway. It's a lot of work.
My hero. Yeah. I see her once here. Well, I met her earlier. Yeah. It's just like her. Oh, okay. Well, straight up. My kid is 42. Older than you. And it doesn't get any better. I still think of him as a kid. Good to see you. I'm gonna get back. Happy Saturday.
So we're that's one way we're able to make prejudice in that they have to be a and it leads to the other well, I started with it. Mail and balance, machines, all kinds of special things to have out. It's just right for
you did all the recording, boss.